We'll call this meeting of the Silver City Town Council to order. Please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item with action council comments. Councilor Battison, would you like to start?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that I was able to attend the Comcast Cares Day on April 27th that benefited the Members Region Arts Council, the 12th Street Bridge, Water is Life, Agua es la Vida. It's the new mural that's going up. And if you haven't had a chance to drive by and see all the beautiful handmade tiles and everything that's going up, it's pretty incredible. I was really happy to be a part of that. And please do drive by and thank the Arts Council, and if you can participate in any way, let them know. I'm sure they would appreciate it. I also want to thank Councilor Ray for everything he did and all the hard work in putting together that wonderful dedication of the plaque honoring Carlos Cruz Aguirre. I enjoyed being there and participating, and I just want to thank all the other folks that showed up and certainly all the veterans that were there. And on May 2nd, I have to say I really enjoyed the Citizens Criterion. That was really fun seeing everybody go around, and the tour of the Gila was wonderful this year, and I really especially want to thank all of the agencies that were out, the different police and Silver City Fire Department, all the different agencies that are out, especially the different police agencies that were involved in handling the suspicious package. They did it very professionally. They cleared everybody out, and it was warranted. I think at the time they did a fantastic job, and I'm very grateful to them, as I know everybody else was. Nobody had a problem with what they were doing. We were all grateful that they handled it the way they did. So thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Cook?
No comment.
Thank you. Councilor Ray?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to personally thank the Jose Barrio School for singing their songs there at the dedication, and thank all those who did show up, the veterans and the other groups, the counselors, Hoven there, and thanks the police department and the public streets for putting up the barriers.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Morales?
No comment, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is any changes to the agenda?
No, sir.
Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes of the regular meeting, April 23rd, 2013.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor?
I move that we approve the minutes of the regular town council meeting of April 23rd, 2013.
Is there a second?
Mr. Mayor, I second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? There's a motion and a second, no discussion, to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Silver City Town Council of April 23rd, 2013. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is reports. Silver City Main Street's report on recommended renovations for the Soko Theater.
Town Council, Mayor, staff, and members of the community. The Silver City Main Street has been very not, I don't think it's working. Yeah. The Silver City Main Street Board Thank you. The Silver City Main Street Board has been very fortunate to be able to work with one of the program associates from the New Mexico, state of New Mexico Main Street, and also an architect with services that have been provided to us through the New Mexico Main Street, to be able to come up with a proposal for the renovations for the Silco Theater. And both the program associates and the architect are here this evening to present our recommendations from the Silver City Main Street Board. So I'd like to introduce them, and it's Elmo Baca and David Vesica.
Good evening, Mayor Marshall and members of the Town Council. My name is Elmo Baca. I'm a program associate with the New Mexico Main Street program. With me here tonight is David Vesica. He's an architect, and we've been working on developing architectural planning options for the historic Silco Theater. I guess I'd like to just give you a little bit of context before we go into our PowerPoint presentation. We have several design options that we'd like to share with you and members of the audience tonight. Basically, New Mexico Main Street, of course, provides technical assistance to all of its community programs throughout New Mexico, and certainly Silver City is our flagship program. It's been in New Mexico Main Street for, I think, 28 years and counting, so we're very proud to be affiliated with Silver City Main Street, and we're very happy to provide services to help revitalize the historic Silco Theater. Basically, we received a service request from Silver City Main Street in mid-March, asking us to provide technical assistance and architectural assistance, and so that's when this project began. I'd like to say that a good chunk of the job early on was just simply measuring the theater, crawling around through all of its many nooks and crannies, really taking a good look at it. And so really David here worked very hard to provide as-built architectural drawings of the theater for the first time. So even though that document is really valuable to the town and to Silver City Main Street. Let me just say I'd like to thank Lucy, the board president, and some of the board members for helping us along the way. I personally consider this a great opportunity and a professional highlight, really, to work on a building like the historic Silco Theater. So thank you all for the opportunity. I'd like to just kind of clarify what we understand our tasks and scope of work to be to the town and to the board. Number one was, of course, to measure the theater. Number two, I think, was really through David's professional expertise to identify the essential improvements that need to be made in the theater so that it could be occupied once again, meet fire and safety codes, local building codes, state building codes, so that, it can open again as a theater. And finally, I think the third part of our mission is, again, to provide the community with design options, both for the short-term use of the theater and also for its long-term uses as well. And so we'll show you some of those tonight. And finally, I think we would like to provide the community with fairly accurate cost estimates on the rehabilitation of the theater through various phases. I'd like to say that once we received the service request from Silver City Main Street, basically I assembled a design team to look at these issues. David Vesica is a licensed architect, and we also had an interior designer, Katerina Jafrida. And then my area of expertise is basically theater operations and also historic preservation. So the three of us have been working collaboratively the last 2 months to come up with these design options. I'd just like to say a couple more things before I introduce David, and then we'll go through our presentation. I think that the historic Silco Theater provides a pretty unique, I think very exciting opportunity to create a catalytic economic development lifestyle project in the heart of your downtown district. I will say that, as you all know, the Silco is wonderfully sited in the heart of your district, right in the middle of Bullard. And so I really think that a dynamic, revitalized Silco Theater will have a catalytic effect, helping businesses all around it on Bullard, and I think within the whole district. I also think that the Silco, just comparing it to other theaters in New Mexico, has a wonderful scale. The auditorium has, in my opinion, very elegant proportions. It's really more like a box. And it has, I think, an ideal audience capacity. We're projecting here about 200 seats on the ground floor and maybe another 50 upstairs in the balcony. And so that size, I think, is really gives the community a lot of options. It's not a huge house, which are often hard to equip. They're so expensive. So I think you can get a lot of value out of this rehabilitation project for, I think, fairly modest budget. So anyway, we're excited to be here. I'd like to introduce David Vesica. He's a licensed architect in Texas and also in New Mexico. He has international and I would say national big city experience, New York, Seattle, Houston. And so I think it was a wonderful coup for us to be able to engage David Vesica on this project. So I think what we'll do is we'll move up to the computer and projector there, and then we'll take over with the PowerPoint.
And then going into suggested phases.
Do you want to go right into the floor plans?
Yeah, why don't you leave it on floor plan 1 and I'll start here and then we'll go into the drawings. Are we on here?
I would just like to say a couple more things. Is this my thing? This is a historic photograph. Unfortunately, it's wrapped around that beam, but this shows the Silco as it appeared in the 1940s. It had a beautiful Art Deco style marquee, and this photograph has really been an inspiration to us in looking at some of our design options. As you can see, the north storefront had the confectionery in it, which also doubled as the concession stand. And so, this kind of is our inspiration through some of our design options. Ready?
Yeah. Okay, can you hear me? What I'd like to do first is talk a little bit about the building assessment, and then go into the drawings, and then to discuss the design options in the drawings. But first, talk about an overview of the building itself, quickly. I categorize this in the life safety, fire protection, accessibility, then heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems, and building program. These are the main categories that need to be addressed, basically, to renovate the building in order to provide basic theater functions or stage functions. So these are items that need to be done, okay? First on the list.
Life safety and fire protection. The existing backstage conditions, there are 2 added upper story floors with unprotected wood construction. There are fire hazards conditions in the backstage that we're proposing need to be addressed first. And, once upon a time, it was one open fly space. But over the years, as buildings, get changed, there are 2 added floors that are right now a bit precarious for life safety and fire protection. There are the proscenium wall that separates the stage from the theater seating. There are holes in the walls on upper levels, openings that were created. So the integrity of the firewalls need to be reinstated. Sounds like small items, but these are items that need to be done first to create a safe environment for the occupancy that's being proposed. A new stairway going from the stage down to the basement needs to be replaced. Basically, life safety issues that have to be done. They're not optional. In the theater space itself, over the years, they've blocked up 2 entries that used to get people from the seating area to the outside. So if it's going to be used as a theater and live performance, we need 2 means of exiting from the seating area. So we need another exterior exit. That has to be done. You have the front door, which works fine, but we need another way to get people out. There is a upstairs loft apartment on the 2nd floor at the front of the building. There's a certain degree of fire requirement that needs to separate the 2 spaces, so we need to make sure that requirement is met. There's holes in brick walls, there's sheetrock walls that were added, so there's items that need to be addressed. We need to confirm with building officials vertical assembly ratings that separate the residential from the theater occupancy. Accessibility. What we're proposing is to remove the temporary raised floor that exists right now above the old raked concrete slope floor of the theater. So we're opening up the old floor. We're turning it back into a nice, big, grand theater space, which leaves us accessibility questions I'm getting from the theater floor to the stage level. If it's going to be just a movie house, we're okay. But if it's going to be a stage production, then we need to provide a means to get people from the theater floor up to the backstage. And we'll go through the drawings and I'll show you some options that we have provided. The restrooms, the existing use of the building is A1 assembly. There are existing restrooms in place. If we don't touch them, we don't have to renovate them. But for accessibility, we need another additional restroom added that's accessible. A heating, ventilation, air conditioning system. Right now, the mechanical system is far undersized and it's not providing proper ventilation, heating, or cooling. So another thing that has to happen upon open up is we need some new HVAC units to ventilate the space properly, to have healthy air, and to heat and cool it. The suggested phases that we came up with and determined were phase 1, remove fire hazard backstage upper wood frame decks. Remove existing wood frame stair from stage to basement. Renovate for cinema usage only. So phase 1, the proposal is to use it as cinema, not as live production or stage, but as cinema. Proceed with the life safety work to create a safe movie theater environment. Proceed with the mechanical HVAC work to provide a healthy movie environment. Proceed with electrical and plumbing work required. Proceed with projection room renovations and equipment installation required to meet digital film projection. Install movie screen sound equipment. Install rear theater exit. Phase 2 would be if they want to use the space for live productions as well. Okay. So in that event, you need accessibility to the stage. So I'll take you through some plan options on how to address that. Also, Phase 2 would be coming in with all new restrooms, larger restroom count. Provide new stage lighting, sound equipment. And pending program approval, will proceed with a new upper-level mezzanine build-out. And then exterior, historically sensitive exterior marquee and building lighting. And I'll go ahead and just take you through the plan proposals and some drawings of those options. This is the proposal for option 1. So option 1, these are existing restrooms here and here. So we're proposing to leave those, okay? Provide one new unisex restroom here, all right? Now, the theaters are going to need a concession stand. And originally, historically, this was a confectory. And it's the larger of the two spaces. So there's already plumbing established back here. So basically, we need a counter and we need to serve concessions. Now, in this proposal, the idea is to have the ticket booth accessible from the outside, but the person would be working on the inside. So basically, it'd be like a little window walk-up. Right now, there's 3 existing windows, so we'll just recover one of those bays. New lobby space. Now, this floor plan, the way this is laid out, this allows for future expansion into option 2 with minimal disturbance of the existing partitions. So part of the criteria was, 1, maximize the allowable seating area available, okay? So that means make this lobby efficient and the restroom layout efficient. 2, this Phase 1 could be converted to Phase 2 with minimal effort, okay? So here we are, we've exposed the rake concrete floor. We have approximately 190 seats here. You come in, upper level, starts right there, the balcony. In this scenario, I'll show you the second floor plan, but it would be an equipment mezzanine adjacent to the projection room. We'll unveil or reveal the old stage. So all this is basically existing, and screen for theater usage, and sound equipment, rear projection behind the screen. The intent is the backstage will remain the same, except for we'll redo that stair. It's unsafe. And then the upper levels would be removed. Let's go to the second floor. Okay, so second floor, this would be a minimum deck that could be converted to other uses for Phase 2. We call this an equipment mezzanine. Here's the projection room. We'll have a new door into the projection room where it used to be located and expand the room to accommodate new technology. These curved walls serve a couple functions. Aesthetically, it softens the corners of the space. Acoustically, it helps the sound conditions. And then vertically, we can have our risers from the roof deck units, the HVAC units can feed down here. This is an existing access to the roof. It's a 2-story old light well with a ladder going up to the rooftop. So second story backstage, there wouldn't be one, basically. Next. Okay, so here's a drawing showing Phase 1, looking from the equipment mezzanine balcony down to the new seating area. This is the existing condition of the old stage. It's still there underneath this raised floor that floats above that raked floor at the moment. And basically, it's a movie theater, so you'll see a screen. It's a very simple finish out. Next. Looking from the seating area back up to the equipment mezzanine, here's a projection booth. Okay. Here's that upper level mezzanine, which could be converted to a proposed secondary use down the road. Again, these are all curved surfaces to help with the sound absorption as well, and sound reverberation. Next. Okay, now there's many options for the front, but this is one shot showing a new, reinstating the historic marquee that we showed you earlier on the first image, with a canopy and vertical billboard. The idea is to have a glass entry, glass wall that would contrast the historic and also provide a fresh, new appeal and visually attractive entry. A concession will be over here next. Okay, so here's that glass wall. For some reason, these drawings didn't translate in PowerPoint, and so you can't see what's behind it. But here would be the ticket booth. So you walk up, get your ticket, come into the front door. Next. Now, option 2, this is showing the full bathroom finish out. Okay? So these are bathroom counts based on occupancy load. Women's, men's. But basically, those walls, it's basically a similar layout to what would have been constructed in the proposed option 1. Now, here we go. Where are we doing the stage? We have accessibility. So we have stairs coming on one side, and then basically we have a lift to take you up 3'6" to the stage level. And these areas would be screened, with curtains, not visible. And then phase 2 would be reconfigure the backstage area. So depending upon the stage production's needs, you can incorporate a new program, new walls, etc. Next. Second floor. Now the option that the board liked and that we'd like to pursue is have a lounge upstairs. And so this could be a private venue that could be rented for special events, movie premieres. And basically right now you have these 2 beautiful staircases that used to access the old existing balcony. Very classic, symmetric. And so those would basically be used to get upstairs, and you could have a sofa seating area, you could have tables, a bar, some light food. So it could be a separate venue within the theater itself. Next. Okay, now, so this is looking at the phase 2 proposed stage. Stairs going up on one side, lift coming up on the left side. This would be screened on either side. You'd have a new surround for the performance stage. This is the existing old section of the stage. Okay, here's that lounge area. It'd probably be railing, but it'd have great visual access to either movies or theater production. Next. Okay, looking back at that balcony, a little bar, 2 entries, lots of floor area, sofas in the corners, and then movable tables and chairs in the middle. And this is that wall that basically is the foyer to get into the theater from the lobby. Next. Okay, and again, I apologize. The other drawings just had transparency. You can see right through it. But this is the idea of maybe bringing that glass wall out closer to the street edge so that you would recapture. We'll go back to the plan. Back to the first floor plan. Yeah, there's various options here, but you could have a glass wall coming up to this point, which would then turn this into an interior vestibule. So you'd have a very, very enlarged lobby sequence. The original door right now is back here. So that can move back and forth. We also talked about the idea of maybe putting a ticket kiosk, which it once had, out in the front of the building as another option. Okay, let's go back to the last drawing. So is that it? And that concludes our presentation.
Councilor Bettis.
I just have a couple questions. So I didn't see where the second exit was, even on the plans you provided. So I kept wondering if that's where number 3 is. And is that exit, in reading what you had provided, it didn't sound like it was ADA getting out. You would need assistance after you got out. And so, let's say, heaven forbid, there was a fire where you couldn't get out the main exit. What happens to the folks?
There would be an area of assisted rescue on the outside, essentially. And you got about a 16-inch thick brick wall. So the idea would be on either side, there was 2 options proposed. 1, use the door on this side, and there's an existing staircase that goes back to the alley. 2 is open up the south side, okay, and introduce a new stairway going to the back of the building and have an area of assisted rescue in either scenario, essentially.
So So assisted rescue in the sense that someone's actually going to be there to assist people out when people are
Assisted
fleeing?
rescue, meaning that in the process, upon their egress, they have an area of refuge that's safe from other people coming out, and it's also safe from fire.
Okay.
So, per code, we're required one exit for accessibility, not two. But this is providing two. Otherwise, you know, I need about 60 foot of ramp in the back
Right.
to get them up, and it's an elevation challenge. I mean, originally, this was a door to the outside, and so is this. Over the years, they filled all this in with grade, about 6 feet of it, okay? So it's buried, that entry is buried.
It's buried.
Just found out today that the property line allows us to do this scenario. So it could ramp up on the outside. It would literally just be about 60 foot of ramp.
No, I know, yeah.
So I thought maybe, you know, if we do an area of assisted rescue,
That would,
Which-
so that's what you meant by assisted rescue?
yeah, it's basically, it's not an area of refuge, it's called an area of assisted rescue, or for assisted rescue, which is a little different. And per code, we only really need one means of exiting for the accessibility.
Right, but if that exit is blocked.
Exactly, that's why I'm proposing
Right.
an area of assisted rescue.
So you said per code that that's different, that assisted rescue, after you explained to me what, they had an area of refuge, you said that assisted rescue was actually different from refuge.
The refuge is typically internal of the building, like a
Okay, so
stairwell.
this would be an external area.
So it's an external area, yeah.
That clarifies.
Yeah, I'd like to make it as easy as possible for everyone to get out. So it's just a matter of having the area to either ramp or stair to get out through the back of the building.
Okay, great. And then, so that then begs the question that if it goes to phase 3 with the lounge, there's no accessibility for individuals that cannot climb stairs, correct?
Correct. We're not providing new means of accessibility to that deck. There are existing staircases.
Just wondering.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it might be a great idea on the ground floor to provide a small little venue area, you know, for cases just like that. If someone's having a private party or gathering, so that if someone is on crutches, you know, it could be accommodated. Or a chair, sure. That's a good idea, though.
I thought it was about
Counselor Cook.
What about the exit straight out the back there that goes on to Texas?
Yeah.
Texas.
Essentially, if the use of the stage is for cinema only, we don't need accessibility from this point to the back. Okay. If this becomes a stage for theater usage, then you need, this exit needs to be accessible to the stage. So there could be an additional chairlift put to get a person from the stage back to the outside. I mean, we won't need that. If we have this, we're fine. Okay? But if we don't have this renovation of the stage area and it's just the old stage, then, and they want to actually use it for a stage and not just a theater, then basically we need to make the rear entry accessible. So the idea would be to put a lift right here, so that somebody coming through the back door can get down to the stage.
But the back door can't be used as like a fire exit?
No. I mean, we need two means of exiting from the seating floor area. So we've got one out front, and we just need one other, either on the south side or the north side. You know, I'm all with providing the most safe means of exiting. You know, whichever direction that might be, either north or south.
So, I guess it begs the question, and I'll ask the question which the mayor may want to ask, but we've been provided with this, and it's a considerable amount of work that's being proposed, but we have a purchase agreement currently that states May 31st, and I can't believe that this will be completed by May 31st. So my question is what ultimately would be the request that might be forthcoming from Main Street? I'm not sure if Alex would like to speak to that, and what is Main Street's estimated time to completion?
Well, per discussions with various, working with Elmo and others, basically, this project, of course, will not meet the requirements of the current purchase agreement. So if we are to move forward, then we're going to have to amend the purchase agreement, extending that period for the renovation. And basically, talking with Lucy, currently the building is bringing in enough revenue through the two little stores out front, as well as the renting of the loft upstairs, that they do have enough a revenue stream adequate to pay the debt service that they would owe us for the lease of the building if we purchased it. They currently have that revenue to continue using it as it is right now, while we working together, we gather the funds from outside sources to do this remodeling. So basically, that is an option that they were looking at. Well, I don't want to speak for it, but that's what we've discussed recently.
Do you want to respond to that?
That is the request that we would like to make, that the council consider a revision to our current agreement.
So this would be forthcoming at some point, Alex, and is this going to necessitate expenditure of town funds prior to the end of this fiscal year?
The way that we would look at doing it is to move it to the next council meeting, to have the agreement taken care of, and then we would go to closing at the beginning of June. At that time, our loan would be closed, and we would be able to pull down those funds. To help with cash flow, the way that I would like to work with Main Street is to do a purchase agreement. They would secure a secondary source of financing for 30 days. I would pull down the loan funds, then turn around and reimburse off of those funds, which become ours once we draw them down. I would reimburse the state funds with that, and then once those funds come in, we would finish the purchase agreement within 30 days. So no funds would actually come out of our bank account. We would not front anything. And we would not have to expend any additional funds out of the town.
So no town funds?
No town
expended,
funds.
and there would be
Not
no-
even doing it this way, we wouldn't even be fronting any funds.
And there would be no, I mean, I know that we'll be talking about this further, but I guess the concern is with the cash flow, I mean, the end of fiscal year looming. I mean, I know
Yeah.
that our town does a wonderful job, the staff do, of ensuring that you and everybody in finance does a great job, but it's just of a concern.
Yes, and that's why I've been working on doing it, looking at it this way. And so I wanted to negotiate. I've been working with our council to figure out how we could do that, and we have some idea, which we'll be further discussing with Main Street before the next council meeting.
And just one last question, is the current owner of the building amenable?
The current owner of the building is very much interested in completing the sale of the property, yes.
Thank you.
We're looking at an additional almost $500,000.
We have been working on construction estimates for the proposal that we have for what we're calling the Phase 1, which is creating the theater space on the first floor, and then just the mezzanine level just being basically the flat floor and the projection space. And we have been working with local contractors to get cost estimates based on what the cost would be in our area, and that is close to what we've come up with. But that number that you're looking at also does include things like the projection equipment, which is separate from the actual building part of it.
Where's the money going to come from?
We have a fundraising proposal that we are going to coordinate private donations, and one advantage that Silver City Main Street has is that it is a 501c3, so donations to Main Street are tax deductible. We have quite an interest in our community in theater and feel that we can find support in the community. We also have other funding sources, but one of the stopping points with being able to get funding has been that the building is still in private ownership. Once the building is actually owned by the town, it will open up a lot of funding opportunities for us.
So doing a fundraising campaign between now and while construction is going on October, that's a huge chore to collect $500,000 out of this community and other sources in the next 6 months, because construction's got to start at some point fairly soon, because that's a lot of work.
There are also another round of capital outlay funding that's available to Main Street programs, and we were interested in pursuing that funding. And that is another, that's has really tight timelines on it as far as using the money. It's on a fast track. And so if we were even to apply for that money, we'd have to show that the town owns the building and that we're able to go ahead with the construction. So we have a couple of different things going on that really can't proceed as in our current circumstances. And I don't know, Alex, could you speak to that a little more?
You have Freeport money too, from 2 years?
Yes, right now they have $50,000 from Freeport. This transaction would give them an additional $70,000 towards construction, because they've paid down the actual purchase price, so they'll get an additional $70,000 there. I went to Santa Fe last week, and there's like Lucy said, the capital outlay from the State Main Street project is opening up now. The deadline for application is June 6th. So that's sort of why they would like to move forward to get ownership of this building by the beginning of June, so that way they could submit the application for that additional capital outlay. So that brings it to 230. So there's other funding sources that they've talked to me about, but these are the only ones that I can say that are right there, other than, that are very viable, other than what, I don't know what others, maybe Elmo can talk a little bit about some that he's looked at.
If I might, Mayor Marshall, we have identified some other potential donors to the theater. Public Service Company of New Mexico is one potential large donor. But there will have to be a creative campaign in the community to raise the gap, to close the construction cost. So, we're looking at local corporate donors, we're looking at using Kickstarter, which is a popular internet-based fundraising strategy. I'm hoping that we can close the gap to about 100 or 150,000, and then we'll have to scramble and, hope the community really supports the theater.
I'll just tell you that my caution comes from starting a project and not finishing it. This community will lose complete faith in Main Street, our organization, and the town has a risk in borrowing the funds, and if we're going to move forward on the project, it absolutely has to be finished, and it has to be finished timely. It's, at this point, I'm willing to move forward, but I'm still very, very cautious that we can find those funds. And capital funds in the last 5 years have gotten very difficult to acquire. So I hope we find somebody that really loves theaters in Silver City and has some very deep pockets. But I appreciate and respect the effort that Main Street's going into at this point, and as well as the town. Councilor?
I just have one quick question on the Main Street monies you're going to apply for. Doesn't that require you to have a permanently hired manager? And is that going, and the fact that you do not have one, is that going to count against Silver City Main Street in the application?
There will be points off, but we are in the process of initiating the hiring process, and so there may be some consideration given for that.
Thank you.
Councilor Rick?
I have a question for you. If the town goes ahead and purchases a Silco Theater, and for some reason or another, the funds do not come through, the $500,000, is the town responsible? Will the town take responsibility to pay it out? I understood that the town will not spend money on it?
Yes, the town is on the hook for the loan. That's just no matter what. But part of the agreement is going to be the leasing of the property back to Main Street. We're going to enter into a long-term lease, a 10-year lease with Main Street, which would equal the debt service of the loan. Now, like I said earlier, they have been bringing in and paying their lease payment to the current owner in an amount close to what the debt service that we would be charging them, the lease payment that we would be charging them. So they've been paying that same payment. But of course, you're right, we still would be on the hook if they were unable to pay the lease payment, because we would still have to make the loan payment later on.
But it's currently producing sufficient revenue to make the payment.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's currently, and it has been for a while, been generating enough revenue to pay the lease payment that we would be charging them. So we wouldn't be on the hook as long as they made their lease payment.
And what about vacancies?
So we're not really in the clear overall.
100% no.
Counselor Cook. Thank you.
What about vacancies in, how would that affect like the payment if there's vacancies like there actually is right now?
In the calculations that we've come up with, we anticipated a 10% vacancy rate. So we are, in our work that we've done on it, we have anticipated that.
Thank you. My vote is for the kiosk, the ticket kiosk in the front. Next item on the agenda is staff reports. Mr. Brown? You gonna dance or what? Oh. Chief, Fire Marshal Milo Lambert. Just took your...
I can be loud enough. Council members, Mayor, due to abnormally warm temperatures, low humidity and high winds, as well as the abundance of dry fine fuels, the Silver City Fire Department, Chief Rudy Bencomo, in consultation with the town manager, is going to enact a stage 1 fire ban. Stage 1 meaning we're not going to allow the building or maintaining of campfires within the city limits. No open burning, to include the burning of yard waste, tree limbs, and weeds. In essence, the department itself will not issue any burn permits. That will not be allowed. UL approved propane grills, as long as they have a cover, are perfectly safe and allowable. Any outdoor wood or charcoal burning devices will be required to have a protective cover, and they will also be required to be signed off by a member of our department. In essence, we need to attend to the site and make sure that it is presently safe in the conditions we're in. This in no way impacts, as it has in previous years, yet. We are still currently in a state of extreme drought and a state of very high fire danger rated by the state forestry division. If conditions continue to worsen, we plan on increasing the amount of items affected by the fire ban, but at this point it's just stage 1. That's all we had to report. I wanted to make everyone aware of that we're moving forward into this, and I would be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
Let's make sure we stay on top of this as well with the 4th of July coming up. We don't want to miss the deadlines.
Yes, sir. We're already tracking that at this point, so.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Russell?
No report.
Thank you. Mr. Skyron?
No report.
And I almost forgot, and I'm probably going to screw this up, but I think we should absolutely recognize our town clerk.
Yes.
Who has received certification from the International Association of Clerks.
Close enough.
Close enough. As a master clerk, correct?
Thank you.
And I believe you're in the notice, you're one of 10 in the entire state. So congratulations, and you're now required to get up and give a speech. Thank you. Congratulations, Ann. The next item on the agenda is number 11, new business. Item A, approval, disapproval of addendum number 2 to the July 1st, 2012 to June 30, 2014 agreement between the Town of Silver City and the Fraternal Order of Police and the Silver City Police Officers Association. Mr. Brown.
Mayor and Council, the Police Officers Association's contract requires that every year that we look at monetary issues in their agreement. And this year we looked at, the approach that we took was looking at some way of retaining our police officers. And one of the biggest obstacles that we've had, well, it was two parts. One was in keeping more officers on the street, and the second was retaining officers, experienced officers. One of the biggest problems that we had was with retaining officers is that we've been losing, and we have for a very long time been losing a lot of officers to the county. And right now, the biggest obstacle to us losing officers to the county is that the county pays 100% of their medical insurance. And basically, that's after-tax funds, so it's straight dollars into their pocket. So what we did was we negotiated two parts. If you look at the addendum, the police officers gave up two forms of, decreased one form of leave and completely eliminated another form of leave. The big one was physical fitness leave. Based on the last 12 months numbers, prior to negotiations, the total number of hours that were taken off for physical fitness leave accumulation was 1,800 man hours. So that's a almost 0.75 full-time equivalent. So basically, by eliminating that, we have 3/4 of an officer's time back on the street. The second one was duty officer. We decreased their on-call time by 1 day a month. So we were able to, they were willing to give up for both the police officers and the detectives, and they did get the 100% medical pay, as well as $300 additional longevity pay. Sorry, I didn't pull it up, so I wasn't reading, I was doing it by memory. So that is what we're recommending, and all this is included in the budget.
Any questions? Councilor Bedison?
No questions. No, want to make a motion?
Hold on one second.
Sure.
And the union has ratified this?
Yes, the union ratified this a while back.
I think it's important that the public know that one of our efforts was to get more officers on the street every day and make sure that they're justly compensated, but we've got to have them out on the streets. And that was pretty much the direction that you were giving going into negotiations. Councilor Bedison.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I make my motion, I want to say that I think it was also important that we retain them. We don't want them to keep, and we want to keep losing them. Yeah. Keep both ways, so keeping them working for us for the town as well. I move to approve addendum number 2 to the July 1, 2012 to June 30th, 2014 agreement between the Town of Silver City and the Fraternal Order of Police and the Silver City Police Officers Association.
Is there a second?
Mr. Mayor,
I'll second it. There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? There's a motion and a second, no discussion, to approve addendum number 2 to the July 1st, 2012 to June 30th, 2014 agreement between the Town of Silver City and the Fraternal Order of Police and the Silver City Police Officers Association. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is fiscal year 2000, do you need a break? 7.
Mr. Mayor,
Go.
I move for a short break.
Mr. Mayor, I second that motion.
There's a motion and a second for a short break. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll be in recess. We will call this meeting back to order. The next item on the agenda is fiscal year 2013-14 budget presentation by Alex C. Brown, Town Manager, Finance Director, nice guy, and request for council's direction.
I'm just going to go through the major funds because basic, and plus the lodger's tax. The major issues, after last times of this, the last discussion we had, the total estimated revenues is, that we're looking at next year is $9,343,000. Transfers out to other funds, $198,450, and expenditures of $8,832,000, which leaves us $76,000 over our 1/12 reserve requirement. The only difference from last time, the presentation, was that I actually adjusted the franchise fees to what our actuals were this year. So I expect it to be more actually next year because it's based on percentages, and our largest one, PNM Electricity, the rates don't go down. So I feel that that's a conservative cost there. The one thing that Councilor Morona said we discussed, brought up last time, was the property tax. I did leave a 1 mil increase, and the reason I did that was because, with the hold harmless issue happening right now, we've got to start diversifying our revenue sources a little bit more than what we are, because we're so dependent on gross receipts taxes, and especially in the general fund and the water sewer fund right now. And the goal by the end of within 2 years is hopefully to get our water sewer fund to a point where we can pull the 1/8 gross receipts tax that is going in there and put it back in the general fund where it truly belongs. This time I did give you a breakdown on top of that by revenue sources, as well as the different expenditure categories summarized. Do you have any questions on it?
Questions? Councilor Benson.
Alex, is that council action in order to do the 1 mil increase?
Yes, it's, what we'll do is, it'll be as part of the budget resolution. We'll include a 1 mil increase as part of the adoption of this preliminary budget, as well as the final budget when it comes along.
Okay. And I think that last time we discussed that was how much overall for a home?
It's on a $200,000 house, we're looking at $20.
Okay, and that is the assessor's value of the home?
Yeah, the assessed value,
And, right, not
not the appraised value.
not the appraised value. I just want to make sure everybody understands that that's the assessed value.
The assessed value, yes.
So, thank you.
Any more questions?
And that still has those additional FTEs in the police department as well. So that's on top of what we just did right now. Okay.
I'm satisfied.
All right, the next thing is the water sewer fund. Basically, there's, the only change that I did was, we discussed that there's a rate increases of 30 cents per 1,000 gallons on the sewer rates and 20 cents on the wastewater rates. On the water rates, what we're doing is going to decrease the base rate. Well, the base rate will stay the same, but instead of it being from 0 to 3,000, it'll be 0 to 2,000 gallons. Tier 2 will be from 3,000 gallons up to 10,000 gallons, and then Tier 3 will be anything above 10,000 gallons. Both Tier 1 and Tier 2 did increase by 25 cents per 1,000 gallons. So this is in an effort to increase our revenue from the water sewer fund and get it to the point where we can pull that gross receipts taxes out of that within the next few years. What I did, you don't have it in your packet, but I pulled it a little while ago when I was thinking about it, is the actual water that we're pumping and billing. What I did was I pulled calendar 2012, and we had a decrease of pumping and billing of 11% in the water sewer fund. So even though we had that slight water rate increase last year, what equated to about 1.5%, we still went backwards almost by 9.5% as far as revenue generated. As far as 2000, so far in 2013, for the first 4 months of the year, we're only at 2.3% above last year, so that still keeps us at almost 10.5% below 2011 numbers. These last 2 years have been quite a bit lower than the previous 10 years average. So even though we've got more billable accounts, we're pumping quite a bit less water. And in fact, last year, 2012, we pumped 103 million gallons less than we did the previous year. And that means we went from 926 million down to $823 million. So for every 1,000 gallons there, we're losing $3 and some cents. We're talking around close to 300 and some thousand dollars that we went backwards. So that's why these water rate increases are so important, because we still have a lot of fixed expenses in the water sewer fund that we still have to pay for. Do you have any questions?
How much savings are we getting on the new pumps?
Okay. The new pumps, we started seeing savings when we installed them about 45 years ago. And we started seeing approximately, it was about $150,000 a year in electrical costs at that time. But since then, with the electrical rates increasing the way that they did, we're not really seeing that savings was eaten up by the water rate increase. So we're still pumping a lot. Our debt service, our fixed costs, which is personnel, those types of things, insurance, capital replacement costs for water sewer lines, the wastewater treatment plant. Those are costs that we still have. The one thing that we will see next year is the savings on electricity from the wastewater treatment plant. So between that, we're going to see that savings. But going back to the water pumping, because we went to the SCADA system, we've been able to go to pumping off-peak, which is the lower rate. And the lower rate is actually a little bit higher than what we were paying previously for pumping any time during the day. So, we still saw our water rate increase, electric rate increase, even though we were pumping everything, most of it at night. One additional thing that I just talked to Robert about last night was We're able to fill up our tanks a lot faster at night now because of the new well that just went online, where we doubled the capacity, our pumping capacity at that well, because of the water that we're able to get. Instead of 600 gallons per minute, we're bringing out 1,223 gallons a minute out of that. And we do have the booster capacity to get all into town. It's just we didn't have the water coming out of the well enough to get as much as we could into town. So we're in a lot better situation so that we can take advantage of the off-peak rates. So that's where we're at with that. We've been trying everything to take advantage of off-peak rates, and the electricity is by far our largest expense in the water sewer fund.
You still have a net savings due to the more efficient pumps and the off-peak, because we would have been paying the higher rates.
Yes, we do have a net savings, but with the decreased billable gallons of water, those have offset each other.
And it would have been worse.
It would have been a lot worse, yes.
Any other discussion?
Okay, the next one is the sanitation fund. There were no changes to this at all. The sanitation fund, we have a 3% automatic rate increase that is in ordinance right now, and we don't expect to see any changes. The only change that we might see there is we may end up with a bigger beginning cash balance because the Solid Waste Authority is refinancing their debt, and when they refinance it, they owe us some money. So we'll get that money added to our beginning cash balance, and that hasn't been added to any, it isn't projected to spend any of it. So we've stayed the same there.
Discussion?
Okay, and the final fund that I'm going to talk about is lodger's tax. The allocation is going down from 225,000 to 200. The revenue projections are going down based on our current revenues that we've been realizing this year. We will be seeing that there was some slight increases in the overtime money for the police and fire. One thing there is that in the general costs, there's a $10,000 budgeted in contractual, $2,000 in contractual services and $8,000 in supplies. I need to take those out. So I'll probably move that $10,000 into the allocation money, because we don't need that 10,000 there. That was a mistake that I just found when I was going over this right before I came in.
Should we consider not putting it in the allocation and putting it into the data?
The system, yes, that's probably what we could do, is I can just move it all into professional services there so that we can work on that data collection. If you want to elaborate on that a little bit.
Not really.
Not really?
What I'm referring to is we've had some meetings recently to actually get a better view of the data that is collected by the websites that we fund, and we repeatedly fund year after year after year. They produce so much data from the hits are almost irrelevant, and one of the web designers told us, if you want to triple your hits, I'll add 2 pictures to your website, and that triples your hits right there. So that's really not relevant information. what is relevant is the technology is out there that tells us who's looking at it, what they're doing on it, where they're at, and it allows us, if we are to force those that are using our money to develop websites, to actually collect the data, and we can then come up with data-driven targets for our marketing. And by geography, by other demographics such as age, occupation, car you drive, it's just going to give us a lot better picture of where we need to be marketing, what works, what doesn't work, and that has not historically been done. And I think to make sure that we're utilizing the lodger's tax to the best benefit, we need to do that. It also gives us the data that shows if somebody's giving us a proposal that they're assuming is innovative and creative, and we look at all of our data and say, yeah, it might have been a few years ago, but we tried it. It didn't work. Or we haven't tried it. Let's give it a try. Failure in marketing is not always a negative when you can actually develop the data that shows where we ought to be going. So one of the efforts that we're moving forward with is actually making sure that when our contracts go out for websites, that we require certain data to be collected and made available to the town so that we can put it into a comprehensive database and come up with a valuable tool for the future.
So we can remove that on the, so we'll stay there. The one thing that I would want to mention in addition to that, to all of this, is that one other fund that's very important is the gas tax fund, which pays for all the maintenance on the streets. And again, we're going to see another decrease in revenues, which we've been realizing. As manager, I've never seen an increase in the revenues. It's always been a downward trend forever. So, well, for the last 12 years at least. And so we're seeing less and less money available for maintenance of our streets. So that is something that we're going to have to address and look at. And I'm going to keep working on that. And as we go through the budget, hopefully after the first quarter, I'd like to bring something to help supplement and work to get some additional dollars for street maintenance.
Where are we at with getting the fuel depot running?
Peter and them are working on it for me.
Are you prepared to make a comment, or did I catch you really off guard? He looks mad, Alex.
No. We're investigating how the station can be most clearly reactivated with the minimum amount of investment in terms of remediating some of the damage there. We have some cost estimates to do that. We also have a cost estimate on what it would take to just close it out. And so the question is, does the savings in gas over, say, 10 years offset the much higher cost, which I think was about $100,000?
Yeah, that's the additional cost I got, was $100,000. That's why the cost benefit of the gas was not going to work. But Peter and the staff have come up with some better numbers.
And then $20,000 to just close it out permanently, remove the tanks. So that you have an 80% differential. You can purchase gas on the, I think it's called the CES contract at a much lower rate. So we don't have a firm recommendation, but we've been exploring the options for the town.
It's a whole different set of numbers that we were given on purchase.
Yes.
The equipment was supposed to be in better condition, apparently.
Yes.
Okay. We'll talk. Any other discussion? As usual, I think you've produced a good document. It's always tough when you're faced with declining revenues and increasing costs. Some of that's, unintended consequences of increasing efficiencies. But
I found that this year's biggest obstacle, is preparing for our hold harmless thing. And, I want it to be get gradually to the point where it's not going to start killing us as soon as it starts happening. That's basically, it's going to compound every year after it starts in 2 years. So I do have a long-term plan, so hopefully it works.
well, the good part was when Standard & Poor's gave us our rating, they said one of the negatives was the lack of control over our own revenues, and the elimination of the hold harmless rectifies that comment.
Yes.
Not exactly how we'd like to have rectified it, but it does. So, any other discussion? Complete? We will move on. Approval, disapproval of notice of intent, ordinance number 1220, and ordinance amending ordinance number 1195, ratifying actions heretofore taken, and repealing all actions inconsistent with this ordinance. Mr. Brown.
Mayor and Council, as you might remember, we entered into a power purchase agreement with NRG Solar, who later on assigned their contract to Affordable Solar. In that document, we did have the clauses to assign, that they could assign the contract to another entity, which was Affordable Solar. With our permission, all those documentation are moving forward. Actually, I think they've been executed. The one issue that was a little problem was, as part of that whole deal, initially we did the IRB for NRG. There was no language in there that allowed the assignment of it, which was mostly a clerical error. So bond counsel, our bond counsel, and their bond counsel, for clarification purposes, would like for us to go ahead and reissue the exact same IRB, but to Affordable Solar. And we did take the precautions that the holding company, I think it is, the council requested that it be a New Mexico corporation, and they did set up a New Mexico corporation that we verified beforehand. So everything's in place. It's just moving forward and doing this for Affordable Solar.
So this is just the same thing that we had done before, only we're changing essentially the name, and the company it is an in-state company.
It is an in-state company. In fact, now the actual company, the original company that we're dealing with, is a New Mexico company. So it went from I believe a California-based company that we were originally working with to now we're working with a New Mexico-based company. And actually all of their financing is coming from New Mexico, so everything is in New Mexico, from the financing all the way to the company.
That's good, thank you.
Any other discussion? Entertain the motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor.
I move that we approve notice of intent ordinance number 1220 and ordinance amending ordinance number 1195, ratifying actions therefore to taken and repealing all action inconsistent with this ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, I second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? There's a motion and a second, no discussion, to approve notice of intent ordinance number 1220 and ordinance amending ordinance number 1195, ratifying actions heretofore taken and repealing all actions inconsistent with this ordinance. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is approval disapproval of resolution number 2013-17, adoption of the Silver City Greenways and Big Ditch Master Plan. Councilor Moniz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is another plan to be added to a number of plans we have. But one of the things I really like about this is it's a collaborative effort between Main Street and a number of other interest groups. I also really appreciate the fact that it builds upon all our other plans. It's consistent with our comprehensive plan, our Trails and Open Space Plan, the Downtown Action Plan. It builds upon everything, which allows us to, in the future, as money permits and desire permits, we can start moving and trying to execute on this plan, and we're actually working and completing all the other plans that we have. It's just a nice document, and at this point, I'll just turn it over to Lucy Whitmarsh with the Silver City Main Street project.
The Silver City Main Street project, in conjunction with our interested trail partners in the community, have been very fortunate to have been able to work with Charlie Deans and develop the plan. We've also had quite a bit of involvement from the town, and so we do think that it is a very comprehensive plan, and especially appreciate the support, or the widespread support of the community for this. And one of the reasons that the Silver City Main Street initially got involved in starting this is because we're really proponents of more use of the Big Ditch Park, and we feel that connectivity with the trails will help promote that, because it will be part of a trail system that can be used to get from place to place. And another priority that we've had is that the Main Street Plaza, which is where the farmers market is in need of improvements to the grading and to the performance area, and also to be able to have public restroom facilities. And we feel that this is a really important part of our project, and also contributes to greater use of the trail system and the Big Ditch Park. And so I'd like to turn it over to Charlie Deans to explain what's been happening.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm Charlie Deans with Community by Design. I'm also a consultant for New Mexico Main Street. I'm the planning program associate with the Main Street program, and so basically I was paid to prepare this plan from the Economic Development Department appropriations as part of my contract. And as Lucy said, I was requested by Silver City Main Street to help them with what started out as a Big Ditch Master Plan, but did grow into creating more connectivity to the other creeks that join up and the confluence at the Big Ditch Plan. I'm going to just highlight pretty quickly a couple of aspects of the plan, just so you at least understand some portions of this. And let's see, Jim, your computer wants to do something. I really want to talk about the process for a second. Although this plan acknowledges the steering committee that worked with me over almost a whole year in putting together this plan, they were much more involved than your typical, oh, let's meet once a month and have a couple of hours and talk about this thing. They were really a working committee. They were my on the field out there. I gave them the maps. They were walking and looking at where some of these alignments should go, and so I do want to acknowledge the work and the time that this group of volunteers from the various Grant County's Trails Group, as well as Silver City Main Street and some of the other walkability folks who are in the community itself. I think you have a sense of the extent of the mapping that we looked at on the plan. This is the Big Ditch area right here downtown, but we went up Silver Creek to approximately the Waterworks building to look at connecting that, and then we went up to the high school, up Pinos Altos, and looked at that connection, Big Ditch, and then going south to San Vicente to about where the brownfield site is to the south. So that was the area of focus, and it was really, it's not just recreational, and it's recreational and it's building tourism, but it was really looking at it in terms of economic development, of how can we get people downtown and allow them to get there without getting in their cars, and creating those connections. I'm going to jump ahead to page 15 in the plan and just talk a moment. This is just one example. We divided that area into 6 different segments in order to get a better idea about detail. And so Silver Creek, which, as you know, goes north from Big Ditch up to the Waterworks building. I'll just use this as an example of how the sort of design and the pathway process that we used. There are 4 pathway standards that were developed and are defined in the plan themselves in terms of widths and activities and some of the design standards for those. The simplest of those is what we're calling the primitive pathway, which essentially is the creek bottom itself, and that's the blue line shown here. There's some particular challenges, and while that seemed like the most common sense place to start with using the creek bottoms, there are some challenges with the creek bottoms, particularly in the areas south of 180, both in the Silver Creek as well as the Pinos Altos Creek, is that the creek bottoms are almost entirely privately owned. They're almost all in somebody's backyard, and so it's going to take some time to actually get easements and access and develop that. And so while we certainly started with that primitive, using the creek bottom itself, we also, in working with the committee, also developed what we called, or what I called, a top-of-bank pathway too. And so we also see in these sort of orange areas what we're calling the rural pathway has a design standard, but it largely is on the top of the bank. And in some cases, that's going to be acquiring easement on private property as well. And to connect those then, the other standard that we created we're calling a street standard, because we're going to be using the public right-of-ways to connect some of these top-of-bank areas. So we've essentially designed and planned a pathway system that is parallel. And probably, and although it's the vision and it's the long-range plan, and it'll be ideal if there are 2 parallel pathways, one in the creek bottoms as well as one on top, for the various users. In the long run, it's probably going to be some combination as the town and these trail users groups and Silver City Main Street start getting funding and acquiring easement. It'll probably turn out to be some sort of using creek bottom when it's appropriate, using top of bank when it's appropriate, using existing street right-of-ways when they're appropriate, and sort of just cobble together something that's going to be an interconnected path in the long run. But we have designed it so that there are at least 2 alignments in the plan itself as far as how to connect to the Big Ditch from this system. So I just wanted to kind of walk you through that understanding of what all those colors mean and the different standards and how they get applied on this system. There is I'm going to just jump ahead then to page 28, which talks about the implementation plan, because it's probably the most important chapter in the plan itself. And there was quite a bit of discussion here, and both working with the town staff as well as the steering committee that I was working with, it was made very clear that the town is not going to be responsible taking the leadership role in implementing this plan. The town's role is going to be one of support. The town's role is going to be one of pursuing funding with these groups, but this is not anticipated where the town is going to go out and start buying trail easement and having the burden of implementing this plan. It's really going to be a volunteer-driven, with a town partnership with the trails groups and Silver City Main Street to realize this planning process. And so we did develop, there are phases, priority projects that are part of the plan that are highlighted in the maps towards the back of the plan on page 29 and 30. I'm not going to go into those details, but it does show these yellow areas that are the priorities. And the last piece is just, we took those priority trail segments, whether they're the Big Ditch and the Main Street Plaza or the Pinos Altos, and so that first mile and a half of the Pinos Altos going up to the high school is shown in the actual. So the costs that have been done are just for those priority projects and priority pathways. So it's about $200,000. It's not a lot of money, but certainly it's achievable in terms of starting to pursue funding sources. The plan has identified several funding sources for these kinds of projects, and so there's a starting point to start to realize this plan. But everyone understands, at least the groups that I worked with know that this is sort of a 10 to 20 year project. It's not going to happen overnight. There are some challenges because of the amount of private property that's going to have to be acquired through easements. But that's a quick overview of the plan, of kind of the pieces. If you have questions about it, I can certainly respond to those. We are asking you to approve a resolution, at least as far as Mexico Main Street and some of the capital outlay money that they receive and the Economic Development Department receives. It certainly benefits the competitiveness for pursuing some of that funding if the plan has been formally adopted by the town. And so when they start pursuing it, whether it's DOT enhancement money or economic development, capital outlay money, the resolution is really helps in terms of the competitive nature for those grants. Questions, Councilor Cook?
On map Big Ditch Section B, Silver City Greenways Master Plan, what's this Main Street Plaza?
Main Street Plaza is where the farmers market is now. And so there are some improvements that have been proposed there, like restrooms. There's a listing in the appendix. We have a cost estimate in this chart of $130,000 to do various improvements in that area, both in terms of a performance area, restrooms, doing a better paving surface in that in the farmers market area, so that it could be used for, it'll still be used for parking during the week, but on the weekend it could be used for venues. But yeah, the Main Street Plaza is the code name for the farmers market area.
Got it.
Okay. Not my title, but that's what the Main Street folks call it.
Thanks.
Councilor?
That project, will it be funded by Main Street or by the town?
Well,
what you just asked.
Yeah, the intent is, I think Silver City Main Street does intend to ask for state Main Street capital outlay money to fund some of that project. And how much they're going to ask for, you'd have to talk to the Main Street Board about. But I know it's been the intent to acquire funding from the state for those improvements. They have gotten money in the past to do some work there, and so this would be some additional funding.
Okay.
But the town could certainly contribute and do a match and participate in that plaza improvement.
you here for the last presentation?
I was gonna say.
Oh, the Silco presentation?
Yeah.
The budget? Oh, the budget presentation, yeah, no, it's going to be tough, right, we understand that. The realities.
I have a concern.
Yes.
This seems like a very good plan. It's feasible, it's nice, but aren't we kind of stretching our resources a little bit thin? And by the resources, I mean like the police department, the fire department. Have you taken that into consideration? We have a lot of area to cover, or they have a lot of area to cover. And that's a concern of mine. Also, I looked at this plan here, and you guys are proposing, or it's proposed to have skateboards and bicycle people on this trailways here, in one plan, in one phase that I saw there. I think you're asking for trouble if you allow skateboard people to be there, and also bicycle people. Bicycle people are very rude, they don't stop at stop signs. I'm sorry, but they don't. The skateboard people, they go downtown and they're on the sidewalks. We spent money, or the city spent some money here a while back by doing a skateboard. Not being utilized that much. Those are just some of the concerns that I have with this plan here. And I'm kind of holding back on voting yea on it.
Thank you. Thank you. Just a comment about, the plan does propose bike use on some of these pathways, but there are requirements in terms of the width of the pathway. When bicyclists use it, there are standards. There's AASHTO guidelines as far as the width of pathway for two-way bike traffic on this. But now the skateboarders, those can be an issue. I don't necessarily, no one's prohibiting them to use some of these areas right now, but you're right, there are places there that are more appropriate for skateboard use.
And the bicyclists also, they take too much room, and they get too close to the road. And we've seen that, and we've tried to be nice to them. I've tried to be nice to them and all that, and they just refuse to.
Well, sometimes it's best to give them a pathway that's off the street.
There are a lot of roads that have bicycle lanes.
Yes.
And they still take advantage of it.
I understand.
I understand your concerns, Counselor, but I think having a trail system that is off the street and maybe, for the lack of a better phrase, is more out of your way is beneficial in providing them. Right now, if you look at the bike lanes around town, it's an incomplete system and they don't always connect. So if we can provide a manner that people can commute on foot, bike, skateboard, hovercraft, that's out of the traffic flow, and we may be resolving some other issues. Good.
Okay.
I had a question. This has always concerned me. I don't have a lot of questions about the plan and the process. You guys meet right outside my office, so I've been listening to it for months going on. It's always concerned me using creek bottoms for public transportation, designated transportation ways. The one is, we're seeing a change as we get drier, hotter, windier, that our storms are more intense, and I'm concerned that as we encourage the public to play and use these ways as for transportation, that we're telling people, go down in the creek and you don't know what's coming at you when there's a cloud in the mountain.
I share your concern, Mr. Mayor, particularly the areas south of Highway 180. I mean, sort of the older, more historic portions of Silva Creek and Pinos Altos, where it is very incised, it's very deep and narrow, and it's not always a sandy bottom. I think there are some issues with, making it as though people are inviting them to use those creek bottom trails, which is why we also did a top-of-bank scenario to connect. Now, when you get up north of Highway 80, particularly on Pinos Altos, it's a broader, sandier bottom. It's much more defined. It would be much easier to do a pathway up to the high school and do more safe routes to school and connect those areas. But there's certainly, in the downtown area, it's certainly going to be challenging, and there's a question about even developing a trail in the creek bottom there. There's some safety issues, particularly for kids or other users.
Yeah, I think there's appropriate places and places that we really have to be cautious of. And
Yes.
And I'm not too sure we wouldn't want to run some of this by our insurance carrier to make sure that they're comfortable with the plan.
Well, certainly before you start acquiring easement and implementing portions of the plan.
A little bit of a response to Councilor Ray's concerns as well with the police and fire department. We've historically seen many of these areas overgrown and a major fire threat, as well as when law enforcement goes in there to chase people. Everybody that wants to run from the cops knows you run to the ditch. Any of them. Just run out there. They're thick enough. There's enough room to hide. If you open up the ditches and you get into a maintenance program where we can keep them thinned out, keep them where you can see what's around you, we're going to make the police job easier, so they're not as in danger when they get in there and they can see who they're chasing. And at the same time, we're decreasing the threat of fire, or the threat of spread of fire. We may be increasing the threat of fire by having more people there, but decreasing the threat of spread by having it managed. At this point, I want to open it up for anybody in the audience. I'll come back to you. To speak on behalf of the plan, for or against? Anybody? Seeing none?
This is Lucy Marshall with the Silver City Main Street, and I did just want to mention in the comments that we feel that appropriate use of the areas where we have people that are there for a purpose will hopefully decrease the other types of behaviors where people are just, hanging out there and maybe they're not for such a good purpose. So we hope through public use and having people in the areas that are there for recreational purposes will improve the entire environment. Thank you.
Councilor Benson?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to jump off of something the mayor commented on and that you responded to. New Mexico has a major advertising campaign that comes around every summer, Don't Play in the Arroyo. And while we're using the term stream, these are actually arroyos. They're not considered streams as they are back east. So even though it may have sandy bottoms to it, that doesn't mean that with the drought conditions we have, what happens during a drought is, and we're seeing it as our water tables drop. So that means that when these really drastic storms come along, the arroyo is cut down to the new water level. So sandy stream bottom or not, that's how it gets cut down. So I agree with the concern that this may not be the appropriate, it was something that was bothering me. I just didn't mention it until the mayor brought it up. But it's of concern to me. I kept thinking that I'm not sure that's the right place to put pedestrian access or for us to encourage it, since they comment on that every year, on every newscast in the summer, don't play in the arroyo bed. So I just think it's contradictory to the public announcements that are made throughout the state of New Mexico. I'm not sure we're not immune to that. We don't have some of the same sort of channeling that happens up north, but there's a reason why the Mimbres people left this area, and that's because of the arroyo channeling that happened because of the drought that hit them. So, just thought I'd mention that. Thanks.
Mr. Russell?
Mr. Mayor, Council, I just wanted to mention that this plan was kind of a vision of the community, and I'm not sure that all pieces of the vision have to be implemented. It was largely an effort to bring people together to decide how to address this issue, but I think that in every instance of the trails, you will see a top-of-the-bank proposal, and my expectation is that in terms of partnering with the town, that's what the town will push, the top of the bank. Right now, the YCC crews are working on a top of the bank project directly behind the police and fire department. It's above the old CCC walls. I think it's really nice. I think the kids are doing a fantastic work on it. It's something that Jim Coates is working on. So I think that the trails, that the creeks, the arroyos, provide corridors for people to move through the town, but they don't require that people be in the bottoms. They can be used through the top of the bank scenarios. The other thing that I think is really important in this plan, and that I support quite a bit, is that in the past, as groups have proposed, well, let's put a trail in, or let's, do some kind of bikeway, that there was no real set of standards. So, well, how wide should the trail be? In order to share bicycles and, pedestrians, how wide should it be? And this plan sets all those standards so that we can answer those questions, and we can know if there's a proposal to move forward on this section of the trail, what does the design look like? How are we going to be trying to integrate those different uses? And then finally, I do think what Lucy said about, and the mayor alluded to, the trails will bring more people through those areas, and so some of the uses that you see now, whether it's drinking or, camping out or, whatever, will move away because of the public, presence moving through it. So I think the concerns that were raised about encouraging people to go in the creek bottoms are very well founded. I think that the concerns about, conflicts with, different modes of transportation are well founded. But I think this plan does address those issues. And again, we can pick and choose those parts that seem the safest, that seem to have the most bang for the buck, and really do something nice with the kind of green corridors that the arroyos and the trees in them represent. There's a tremendous wildlife benefit also to those, birding is really good. Just that's an important recreational activity, economic recreational activity, and so having access into that, I think would be good for the town as well.
I just have to be sensitive of it, Peter. If you look at my shelf in my office, there's an award that I received some years back for heroism on a water rescue that we did at 19th and, but in their Royal. So
one of the proposals in here is the enhancement of a lot of the bridges over the creeks. I think the bridge at Jose Barrios, fantastic, and is part of that Greenways area. I think the bridge between behind the police department, fantastic. We have a number of bridges that were done, I'm not even sure when they were done, in the 40s or 50s maybe, on PA Creek, that are kind of I-beams and little catwalks. It'd be nice to enhance and to elevate those to the same standard as the Market Street Bridge. But I think those bridges provide connections in parts of the city that have been divided and separated by the arroyos. So the arroyos, I don't think personally the important part is the bottom of the arroyos. I think it's the bridges, I think it's the trails on the top, and, the green. But I appreciate that you received an award for saving someone in the water.
Well, I appreciate the work that the committee did, and Michelle's back here, and she's spending her evening with us, and she's one of the facilitators for that group, and has done a lot of work. And I want to make sure that our appreciation is felt and it's not overshadowed by the questions and concerns. As I stated earlier, I sat there and listened to them every month in their meetings, and there's been a lot of walking going on and mapping and volunteer effort in the community, and that's what makes this community great. And I absolutely do support the plan. I just want to make sure as we go forward that we don't increase our liability, and I hate signs, but if we have to put some up in certain areas that warn people to be aware of their surroundings and be aware, don't drown, then we'll have to look at that time. Any other, Councilor Morones?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Start off with a comment that hopefully doesn't label me a bad parent too much, but basically growing up where PA Creek was pretty much my playground, I allow my kids to go down there. I live right off of Pine, real close to PA Creek, and they just love it. I grew up there and just played there all the time. It was just a great experience for me. It got me down. I would walk from PA Creek all the way to the golf course when I was younger, and my kids just love it. Where I try to mitigate that poor parenting is, I try to watch the weather, and I try to limit their activity down there when it's bad. But it's great for kids. It's great for adults. It's a great little area to just enjoy what Silver City has to offer. As I was looking at this, and as I've talked to a number of people, there have been concerns with some of the biking community and the skateboarding community, and in many cases, where some of those issues arise is on our congested streets. Those different vehicles of transportation don't always mesh perfectly well. And what I loved about this plan is it creates a future, a means in the future to alleviate those current problems. It helps take some of those bicyclists off our roads, some of those skateboarders off our roads that are struggling to coexist with the vehicular traffic, and moves them off those roads, creating a safer environment on our streets, on our highways, and it allows, as the mayor said, it allows for some development down there. So we create it's an environment that's less attractive to some of the bad elements in our town. Especially since I just disclosed I send my girls down there all the time. If we can get some of the bad traffic down from there, then I'll even feel like I'm making less of a bad decision. And I enjoy this plan. I appreciate the comments that those who are involved in this plan do look at this as a very long-term plan, 10, 20 years, if at all, to materialize slowly as time permits, as money permits, as volunteers and their time and their labors permit. This will be a lengthy project. This isn't something that any one person or any one group or the town is looking to spend buckets of money and resources to develop for next year. I think that this is something that over time will be a very positive thing and actually decrease some of the issues and concerns that arise. I actually think it works in favor of fixing those concerns than creating them.
Did anybody notice that there's like crop circles on the grass field north of La Plata?
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything. A little bit.
Just an observation I made in your pictures. Counselor.
Mr. Mayor, I move for approval of resolution number 2013-17, adoption of the Silver City Greenways and Big Ditch Master Plan.
Is there a second?
Mr. Mayor, may I second the motion?
You may.
As read.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? There's a motion and a second, no discussion, to approve resolution number 2013-17, adoption of the Silver City Greenway and Big Ditch Master Plan. Roll call.
Council Morales?
Aye.
Council Ray?
Aye.
Council Cook? Aye. Council Garrison?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Charlie. Entertain a motion to adjourn promptly.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Mayor, I second the motion as stated.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.